Tonight, potash production is reduced at the Nutrien mine outside Saskatoon because of the BC port worker strike. Also, support to reinstate National Chief Roseanne Archibald fizzles at the Assembly of First Nations gathering in Halifax. Plus, the Riders return to practice after eking out a win over the Elks last week, getting ready to host the Stamps on Saturday.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, July 11th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. The port strike in BC is in its second week and now it's affecting potash production at one of Saskatchewan's largest mines. Nutrien says its Cory mine west of Saskatoon will slow down production. Adam Hunter has more.
As the strike by more than 7,000 port workers on the West Coast drags on, Premier Scott Moe says the federal government needs to intervene. Moe spoke on the issue while meeting with other premiers in Winnipeg.
We do need some intervention here, as we are losing across Canada about $500 million to estimated $750 million in trade and export to value each and every day. About 20% of what travels through the Port of Vancouver comes from our province of Saskatchewan, and about 40% of what we produce actually goes through that port. So it's imperative that we have access and that port functioning.
On Tuesday, the world's largest potash producer, Nutrien, announced it's reducing production at its Cory potash mine because of a loss of export capacity through a terminal in Vancouver. The company says there are no job layoffs, but a prolonged work stoppage could impact production at other mines.
Just this morning we saw, one of our largest, if not our largest potash producer, Nutrien, has curtailed their production due to the strike and the lack of access to loading facilities at the Port of Vancouver. And so, just as recent as this morning, there's one significant impact to the province of Saskatchewan, and potentially could result in temporary or long-term layoffs.
Workers walked off the job on July 1st, shutting down about 30 ports in BC, including Vancouver and Prince Rupert, two of the three busiest ports in Canada. The union is looking for increased wages and has concerns about contracting out and the impacts of automation. Moe says the federal government should be credited for putting mediators in place, but says Ottawa should consider legislating the workers back to work.
The best agreements do come through the bargaining process at the bargaining table, but we do need to utilize all of the tools available because the cost is just frankly too great.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business agrees. The CFIB says unless a deal can be negotiated immediately, Ottawa should intervene to protect small businesses from what it calls unfair punishments from circumstances outside their control. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
Premiers addressed two of the biggest concerns of Canadians today, the rising cost of living and health care. They're meeting in Winnipeg for 3 days for talks and to pressure the federal government for more help. Ashley Burke has the latest.
Good morning, Premier Ford.
Premiers are meeting with a new healthcare deal from Ottawa in hand. Now the question is, how will they coordinate spending billions in federal funding to address a system in crisis?
Alberta has one of the biggest problems when I look across the country at failing to create an environment in the workforce that nurses want to be in.
Alberta's premier says healthcare costs are increasing faster than the federal government's contributions, and provinces and territories need help bringing more healthcare workers into the country.
Part of it is having the federal government work with us to on the things that we need, which is a streamlined process for recruiting people from abroad, having them come into our system, into the professions that we need.
Don't sell off our health care.
Nearby, a rally to draw the Premier's attention to the problems. The National Association of Nurses also met directly with premiers.
There has to be a health human resource plan. They have to work with their employers and their unions to see how are we going to make sure we have enough nurses, doctors, healthcare workers in the next year, 5 years, 20 years.
Affordability, another top issue during Premier's talks today.
I'm really concerned about that. 8 out of 10 Canadians are concerned about the cost of living. Our government is, I'll give you an example. I'm out here. I always look at the gas prices. They're about $1.60, $1.57, same in Ontario. Just imagine if Ontario, for Ontarians, we never reduced it by 10 cents. I would love to see the federal government reduce their share, give people a break.
BC's Premier said skyrocketing housing prices can't be ignored.
Like other premiers around the table, I have a real sense of dread about the next Bank of Canada rate hike. I think that the impact on British Columbians is pretty profound. Our housing is already very significantly more expensive than other parts of the country.
In Canada's north, food prices are hitting new extremes.
The prices in our stores are incredible. Some communities are paying over $30 for a gallon of milk. So that is my biggest fear, is that our people are hungry.
These issues all feed into tomorrow's conversation about economic trade and growth. Some premiers are calling on Ottawa to help speed up infrastructure projects. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It appears we have some active weather in this province this hour. Our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. What's going on?
Well, we have some severe thunderstorm warnings that were in effect a little bit earlier this hour, but those have begun to drop off, but not before they produced some pretty spectacular shots out near Maple Creek a little bit earlier this afternoon. Thanks to Tiana for sending in this shot near the Maple Creek area. The tornado watch that was in effect has just come to an end now, and this was in effect for southwestern Saskatchewan. It is over. Thankfully, no tornadoes touching down, but some pretty strong storms that were producing winds potentially over 90 kilometers an hour, still moving through southeastern Saskatchewan. We still do have that, or southwestern Saskatchewan rather, we still do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for the Swift Current and Assiniboia-Gravelbourg area. Some showers now along the Trans-Canada Highway moving toward Regina, and a minor risk, a level 1 out of 4 risk for some storms once again through much of the province tomorrow, including in the southwest, but we're hoping that storms won't get quite as severe as we have seen in portions of the province this afternoon, Sam. And I'll have more details coming up a little bit later.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Winnipeg police have charged disgraced fashion mogul Peter Nygard with sexual assault and unlawful confinement in relation to an incident that happened 30 years ago. Caroline Bargu has the details.
Winnipeg police began investigating Peter Nygard in 2020 for allegations he sexually assaulted 8 women in Winnipeg decades ago. Their case files went to Manitoba prosecutions to review. In the end, the Crown said there was no reasonable likelihood of conviction and that Nygard would not be charged in Winnipeg.
We've all seen the allegations.
Last December, Manitoba's Justice Minister referred the case to Saskatchewan prosecutors for review, saying he lost sleep over it. Today, Winnipeg police charged Nygard with 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of unlawful confinement in relation to 1 victim. That victim is Vancouver actress April Telek. In 1993, she was flown to Winnipeg to model Nygard's signature line. She was 20 years old at the time. She alleges she was drugged and held captive at Nygard's headquarters on Notre Dame Avenue for days, where she was sexually assaulted. We spoke with her from her home in Vancouver. She says she's relieved to hear charges were laid. A trial is still a long way off and a conviction is not a certainty. Telek is hopeful justice will be served.
This feels like such a huge victory for me after such a long battle trying to get my truth told and heard and believed. It's not a full victory because I still have sisters out there who he is not being held accountable for the damage that he has done to them. But for me today, I want to really, truly embrace this as a win.
Casey Allen is one of the 8 women who brought their allegations to Winnipeg police. While she's disappointed her case won't go to court, this is what she said about the charges. It's about time. It's a devastating commentary on Manitoba's so-called justice that we had to look afield to get answers. I'm assuming it's the Saskatchewan DAs that have come in. That's tremendously good news. Nygard is also facing sex assault charges in 2 other Canadian cities. He goes to trial in Toronto in September. It's expected to last 10 weeks. His Montreal trial is scheduled for June 2024. Nygard is to be extradited to the U.S. once his Canadian trials are complete, but has appealed that order. No decision has been made on that yet. Through his lawyers, Nygard has consistently maintained his innocence and has denied all the allegations against him. We contacted his lawyer today to see if he had any comment on these new charges, but have not heard back. Caroline Bargut, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The provincial government is giving $1 million to the Saskatoon YWCA for its second stage shelter. That money will help women and children fleeing interpersonal violence. The money will help the YWCA add 33 fully furnished units. Second stage housing offers safe, affordable housing and services to help rebuild the lives of those escaping abusive relationships. Women pay rent and other living expenses and can stay up to 2 years. They also receive connections to education and employment, as well as counseling for themselves and their children. Up until this year, the province didn't provide any operational funding to second stage shelters.
There's been a lot of investment over the years in that first stage, so namely emergency shelters, but there was an understanding that second stage is that next wraparound step, which is very important to provide stability for women and their children. And I noted some of that in my remarks about educational opportunities, so transition to that for women, to employment, and also stability for their children.
I'll tell you that in 2021, we turned away over 4,000 women and children. There was no safe space for them and no place for them to go. So what we've also found is that transitional supported housing is so incredibly important in terms of further stabilization and in terms of moving forward in a good way. So it's required, and there's just simply not enough space or services to meet this really important need.
The provincial government says it has committed $27.5 million this year to address interpersonal violence. The Assembly of First Nations rejected an attempt today to reinstate Roseanne Archibald as national chief. It was the first time First Nations leaders met in person since a vote to oust her. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, the AFN is now trying to move ahead after the infighting.
Chiefs, it is your decision. You have spoken.
A last-ditch attempt to reinstate Roseanne Archibald, the first national chief ever ousted from the Assembly of First Nations, defeated.
Raise your hand, please.
An overwhelming majority of First Nations leaders voted to move on during the first day of their annual summer gathering.
We have to work together to build up that confidence back.
Exhausted from the leadership turmoil, overshadowing the Assembly's agenda for more than a year.
We have to get to the business of homelessness, of safe drinking water, of the opioid crisis.
What has happened to me has come from hatred.
But the former national chief isn't going away quietly.
What is happening in this moment is absolutely wrong. Everybody sees it. Everybody sees it except for you. Wake up, stand up, and vote against the garbage that's happening at AFN.
Thank you very much.
Archibald was removed from the top job only 2 weeks ago in a private virtual meeting after a workplace investigation concluded she harassed and retaliated against staff. But Archibald says she's facing retaliation for raising concerns about alleged corruption within the AFN.
I solemnly promise.
New Brunswick Regional Chief Joanna Bernard is now interim leader, promising to create a safe work environment and even support Archibald's request for greater financial transparency.
To maintain legitimacy of this.
Some chiefs still want to complete the work Archibald started, restructuring the AFN and launching a forensic audit.
There is a period of healing and of collaboration that is needed by leadership within the Assembly of First Nations. I think one of the ways that we can accomplish that is through actually just working together, listening to each other.
That's the challenge facing the organization as it gathers here over the next few days and tries to refocus and catch up on issues sidelined by internal conflict. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Halifax.
I got this saffron rice here, a delicious saffron rice. And then I got the butter chicken. Woo-hoo.
A new summer food festival kicked off in Saskatoon today. It's called YXE Street Eats, and it features all kind of food, drinks, contests, and entertainment. Organizers say they created it because they were disappointed that Taste of Saskatchewan was canceled. There are 24 local restaurants, 10 local wineries, distilleries, and breweries, and 15 local artists and entrepreneurs involved. It is free to attend and runs at River Landing from today until Sunday, from 11 a.m. each day until 10 p.m. at night, except for Sunday, when it closes at 8. More details at yxestreeteats.com. We'll be back after the break. Saskatchewan Roughriders are finding ways to win. The team's 3-1 so far this year, overcoming injury and several tight contests. Last week's bizarre game against the Edmonton Elks was the latest example. The Riders pulled out the victory after scoring a touchdown and making a 2-point conversion and kicking a rouge in the final moments. Head coach Craig Dickinson says the team isn't playing to his standard yet, but he says the games are building confidence that they can execute when they need to.
We're a resilient bunch, and I do think the next man up mentality that we've been trying to preach has taken hold a little bit. We know we have to play better, but we do feel like when the chips are down, when we have to have a play, that we're able to do it.
So we're going to battle to the end of the 4 quarters and the end of the game. So at the end of the game, I just feel like we find a way to win the game, we're going to do that.
The Riders suit up again Saturday when they host the Calgary Stampeders at Mosaic Stadium. Kickoff is at 5 o'clock.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. Employee pricing is on now.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. Why do I feel like I'm going to need an umbrella when we leave here?
Yes, that's rain, the storms very quickly creeping toward the Regina area. We also do have other storms in other parts of the province as well, specifically in that southwest part of the province. The tornado watch ended, but now a severe thunderstorm watch has replaced it for the area around Leader Gull Lake, down toward Maple Creek and the Cypress Hills, through Val-Marie, eastward through Assiniboia, Gravelbourg, where it was already in effect. Some no severe thunderstorm warnings here, but there is some heavy rain and again strong winds, but storms starting to die down a little bit. And keep in mind, we've had some cloud to ground lightning out there, which can be just as dangerous. Now, not quite as dangerous. We're not seeing any lightning in these cells that are moving toward the Moose Jaw area and slowly creeping toward Regina here. Just some heavy rain along the Trans-Canada Highway, and it has cooled temperatures off this system. We are feeling like fall in southern Saskatchewan today. Our warm spot, actually, Buffalo Narrows, a pleasant 24 degrees there today with mostly sunny skies. But again, really only into the mid-teens. For a period of time, Rock Glen was around 14 this afternoon. That's only about as warm as they got, and that was our cool spot in the province. And in fact, a lot of locations, some 5 to 10 degrees below normal for this time of year, kind of in a stretch from Estevan upward to around the Swift Current area. Now, this system going to start to die down as it moves eastward through the night tonight. And I don't think we're looking for a whole lot of accumulation in Regina and southeastern Saskatchewan, but mostly clear skies in central and northern sections tonight. Tomorrow, we could see a little bit of thunderstorm activity again in the southwest, but we are looking for things starting to clear out in southern Saskatchewan. But this low pressure system is really quite stagnant, and it develops a cold front that could bring through some storms, non-severe likely through the Churchill region tomorrow, and it begins dissipating as it moves southward through the night into Thursday morning. Now, rainfall amounts here basically are just dependent on thunderstorms, so don't take these numbers to the bank, but a couple of millimeters here and there are possible, some locally heavier amounts in thunderstorms. Winds remaining fairly light in the south through the day tomorrow, picking up a little bit in northern Saskatchewan. But as that low pressure system and that cold front start to retrograde, start to move back into Saskatchewan, we will see winds, especially in the north, get close to 50 kilometers an hour at times. And winds coming from the northwest means that we will likely start to see a bit of forest fire smoke start to move in. Again, those heavier plumes staying back in Alberta and BC for now, but we have a few days upcoming here of some strong northwest winds, so we'll start to see those move into southern Saskatchewan. You'll notice those winds on our 7-day forecast here in Regina, where tomorrow the clouds will start to clear and will start to warm up a little bit, getting back into the mid-20s, but a few days here of gusts in the 50 range, especially heading into the beginning of the weekend, and then possibly some more showers as we head into next week. For Saskatoon, again, I think tomorrow you will see mostly sunny skies, but you're not going to miss out on those winds either over these next few days. Temperatures also going to be increasing for you, maybe some showers come the back part of the weekend. So temperatures starting to improve, but then the wind and possibly the smoke starting to make a little bit of a return here, Sam.
You know what the Riders don't need?
More smoke.
More wind.
More wind.
They have enough obstacles.
They have enough worries.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Well, it's not exactly Jurassic Park, but a new attraction in Brazil lets you walk among dinosaurs and learn about the Earth's past. The 2-hour trip from Rio de Janeiro takes you more than 200 million years back in time. It's called Land of the Dinos and features 40 life-size animatronic dinosaurs
tucked into the Brazilian rainforest. The park covers about 1.5 square kilometers and bills itself as the world's largest dinosaur park. How cool! We'll be back after the break. In the northeastern United States, torrential rain is triggering deadly flash flooding that's washed away roads and homes. It's being described as a once-in-a-millennium rainfall event. U.S. President Joe Biden has declared a state of emergency for Vermont. Magda Gabrisalassis has the latest from Washington.
The situation is still dangerous in parts of Vermont. Search and rescue efforts are still going on. Teams continue to evacuate people from flooded homes, businesses, and vehicles. So far, more than 67 people and 17 animals have been rescued. Nearly 80 roads across the state remain closed, and people are being warned not to go around barriers.
Do not take any chances. Stay away from rivers and flooded areas. Keep yourself and your family safe by staying well clear of damaged and flooded areas. There are countless road washouts around the state. Please respect all detours and never drive across a flooded road.
The flooding comes after steady rainfall that started on Sunday. The state of New York was also hit hard by the heavy rainfall and flooding. One woman died on Sunday after being swept away by floodwaters. New York's governor has declared states of emergency for several counties. Meanwhile, the heat is on in the southern part of the U.S. There's a wave of heat advisories, watches, and warnings in place for states from Florida to Texas to Arizona to California, impacting tens of millions of people. Now, experts say blame climate change for all this wild weather.
It all comes together, if you will, in a perfect storm of consequences, which translates to truly devastating and deadly weather extremes that we're dealing with here right now.
Now, the current conditions could continue for some time. There's more rain predicted for parts like Vermont later this week, and the heat wave affecting southern states could continue for a couple of weeks or longer. Magda Gabrisalassis, CBC News, Washington.
There's some renewed volcanic activity in Iceland. The eruption started yesterday in the southwestern part of the island, about 30 kilometers from the capital, Reykjavik. It appears to have been triggered by an increase in earthquake activity in the area. Scientists think it may signal the start of a new eruption cycle. The last cycle ended about 11 months ago. There are no reports of damage, and the eruption has not disrupted operations at Iceland's main international airport. And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
Boy, we have nothing to complain about when you see those last two stories there. A little bit of storms may be inconvenient, but nothing like that. We're taking a look at some sun and cloud tomorrow in Regina at 14 degrees. Winds fairly light from the northeast, and we probably will see a little bit more cloud cover build in to the afternoon, but I think we'll see the sun a little bit in Regina tomorrow. 20 degrees, still kind of a coolish day. Saskatoon, more sunshine for you. You're to the north of this system. Winds from the southwest picking up a little bit as we head toward the noon hour, but a little bit warmer to you heading into those mid-20s, and that's the way we're going to see your temperatures over probably these next couple of days. Now, after all that volatile weather, here's a nice treat, a beautiful shot from Angie up on Canoe Lake with a canoe in the background there. Oh, to be sitting on that beach right now, Sam, looks so peaceful.
So quiet, beautiful. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news and weather at 11. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.